I'm DaJuan Johnson. Welcome to the Think Bigger Actors podcast, where I share with you different kinds of talks and coachings and conversations with actors and industry professionals on thinking bigger. I hope these conversations will help you on your path to success, because I believe success is an inside job that starts with your mindset and the thoughts you hold dominant in your mind. Change your thoughts and you change your world. Your path to thinking bigger begins now. That's not the melody at all from my intro song. Welcome to the Think Bigger Actors podcast. I'm your host, DaJuan Johnson, and as you can see, I'm having too much fun with listening to the music coming in. It's such a beautiful day here in Los Angeles, California, and I have got such a great episode for you today. But can I just tell you how amazing it is to be able to sit down with actors at various points in their career and just chat and just have a session where we can just openly talk about the business, and talk about longevity and talk about ups and downs and just really talk about this freaking industry, because I don't think that is really always done. You know, I love hearing about the actor on actor conversations that Variety does or Deadline does. I love all of those conversations. But the thing is, like, we're just talking about the wins all the time, right? Not always just like some of the ebbs and flows, or what were you feeling? How were you like thinking about your career I'm just so honored. I'm just so honored and humbled to be doing this and to be on your journey, this leg of your journey that you're listening to this podcast. And I hope these conversations give you hope or inspiration and maybe some perspective on your career. I know it does for me. And if I'm being honest, as I always am when I get behind this mic, I thought this would all be a little easier. And can I just share that with you? I thought this would all be a little easier, being a complete working actor. I think I dreamed something different for what this, you can't see it, but hashtag actor life would entail. And I think when it didn't happen that way, I don't know, I stopped and I allowed myself to dream another dream and create another vision, but it didn't materialize completely like I thought. And that's okay. In some ways, it was better than I ever could have imagined, But I think it's really hard, when you work really hard at your vision, at this vision, because I've been working for almost, I did like a decade on a show, 8 seasons on a show. And then you booked other shows in between that. And I was going to red carpet events and making money, and I bought a house, and I was really happy with the way life was going, and I thought it would all keep going. But because that isn't what happened, that isn't what the industry had in favor for me. I'm just happy to be talking to other actors and hearing what the journey really is like, is what I'm really trying to say here. I just am really happy about that. And I just wanted to share that with you, because you might be out there thinking that like you have to jump on from show to show to show to show to show. And when it doesn't happen that way, which it doesn't have to happen my way or any other way, but just in case it doesn't happen that way, I don't want you to feel less than. I don't want you to feel like this isn't working. I don't want you to feel like this career isn't for you, because it is. And I got so much more to say, and I'll just finish it in the D12 shot when we get to that part. I'll finish it in the D12 shot, and we'll talk a little bit more about that then. Because today I have Jon Lindstrom on the pod, who is a 4-time Emmy-nominated actor and a best-selling author as well, award-winning filmmaker, and occasionally he says he's a drummer, but I've never seen him, drum or heard his music, but I think he's a pretty nice guy. General Hospital, you might have known him from True Detective, Bosch, and that best-selling author novel he wrote is called Hollywood Hustle. You want to go pick that up. You definitely want to go pick that up. But I just, if you're wondering, I didn't work with him actually on Bosch. He was on set the days that I was shadow directing, actually. And, we just started talking, and we just became friends, hit it off, went to lunch, and, he's been in connection ever since. And I think that's one of the cool things about the business is how you get good people around you if you're good people. That's what I always like to say. And he's a really, 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 really good guy. This episode, we dove really deep into embracing your brand, your essence as an actor, having longevity in the industry, because he's been working for forever, like working for forever. And he talks about maintaining passion and excitement for the work, where we're so busy worried about like getting the work or auditioning or, booking it. But what about the work and doing it? And so we really dove a little bit deep in there. And I had to ask him about, the process in acting and creating characters and all this stuff in self-tapes, because that's what I do. I want to hear what other people are doing out there. And it was really, really, really good. So this is a great episode, especially if you're, into the craft and, that part of the industry. This is it. This is for you. I love it. He's a great guy, but you're going to have to stick around for the D12 shot, where we're going to talk a little bit more about, my absolute favorite thing that he said in the entire episode. See you in the D12 shot. Jon. Jon. Oh man, I gotta tell you that I was so excited, like just going down a Jon hole. That sounds really interesting, right? Of like just learning about you, the stuff that I did not know. I'm so happy you're here, brother. I'm so happy.
Thanks, man. Thank you. I was just thinking about you the other day. Somebody walked up to me on a set and said, "Hey, I just binged season 5 of Bosch." And of course, I can't think of Bosch without thinking about meeting you on set when you were shadowing directors there, expanding your world as a
Well, you do that too. I mean, there's so much I learned about you, and
I did do that
directing.
too. Yes. Yeah. Well, it's like you reach a point where you got to expand and diversify, if you want to survive this business. You really do. You have to branch out and understand it all. I think that's the main thing. You need to understand the jobs that go on to make this thing work, called showbiz.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Because it is a business. It literally is a business.
It is a business. It's a business, and it has a lot of moving parts. And I think it's incumbent on us, especially actors, because we actors can get a little too caught up in our own thing and not pay enough attention to what the other people around us are doing. You don't want to be you don't want distractions, but you should be. That's my motto.
Yeah. I have so many questions for you about that, and because we're just jumping right in, but I'm gonna slow us down just a little bit, because as I was checking you out, of course, you've been at this, we'll say it generously, for a bit. You've been at this
doing this for a minute. Yeah.
I feel like we can say an hour. We're doing this for
an hour. Yeah, it's been a long hour.
You have literally been at this for so long, and I say that with respect, actually, right? With so much respect, because I'm curious, as we start to jump into this, my number one question is, what is your secret to longevity? Seriously, like, what is, because you've had it, and I know you're going to say something like the business and learning all that other stuff, but there's something else, because you're here, you're smiling, and I met you 5 or 6 years ago and you were still smiling. You know what I mean? And so
it's a big question, yes, but I think it's a pretty simple answer, and it really just comes down to I'm just very blessed to be able to do what I love. And even at this stage in my life, after being in this business for a long hour, I'm still getting up in the morning, and I still get to do something every day that I love to do. Now, there was a lesson I learned, and it was early on, and I'd already been doing some jobs and a couple of series and stuff. So I was in, but it was rocky. And I went to audit a class. You probably don't remember. There was a guy in town named Sal Dano, who was very, very well-known acting coach. And this is going back to like the mid 1980s, maybe late 80s. But I audited his class one night, and there was a couple of guys up having some trouble and trying to work their way through it. And Sal got up and he said, "I'm going to demonstrate," which I shouldn't do. But he just kind of simplified the whole thing. And these guys suddenly came to life. They really kind of had an intention and a motivation without even thinking about it. And he said, listen, I learned how to act from the guy who taught all those studio guys. And he went on to explain that in his view, the success of an acting career is measured in its durability. You used that word just a minute ago. And he started rattling off these names, Newman, Redford, Eastwood, Wayne. And people went, you mean John Wayne? Because, they're acting class people. We're all kind of snobby at the time. I'm going to be the best out there, right? And he didn't even answer with a yes or a no. He just turned to the class and said, top 10 box office draw 50 years running. Yeah. I went, wow, you know what? He's absolutely right. And there's something that John Wayne learned early on was to do John Wayne. And if you look at all those other people, Redford, Newman, great actors, really good actors, and even Eastwood, he's stretched his wings a few times. There's something that they bring that they consistently bring. And I think there's a product that you provide. I've come up with my product, my brand, whatever that is, is restrained evil in a suit. I tell you, if I stick to that, man, I just keep working. And yeah. And I'm not an evil guy. I'm a fun-loving dude. I like to hang out with people, have a good time, and play music and have a drink and all that stuff. But when I go to work, I'm often that restrained evil in a suit, and that really works for me. And I think when I look back, that has been the secret of my durability. I do love what I do, but there's something that I can do that nobody else does, and it's that.
So let me pick that apart, because what I also heard there was there is durability, right? It's being a little flexible too, as well. But also, I know you made you didn't do air quotes, but you did a little smile on the word brand. But it sounds like you understand your essence, if I'm right. Like you understand, you get that part about it. You're not, going in there in a clown suit. I don't know why a clown suit came to mind, but
no, but people can have a mental clown suit, I mean, remember in the before times, we used to go into these rooms, and often many of us, I remember reading for the Breakfast Club, if you recall that, when I was young.
I recall the movie. I didn't read for it.
I did. I was still a bartender at the time, and I went in, and it was at Universal, and it was this big room, and the casting director and had us all, 8 or 10 of us sitting down reading different roles from the script. And that's how we auditioned. And John Hughes is standing in the doorway right behind me. Nobody knew who he was, didn't even know he was the writer director. He was just some guy with glasses standing behind us, who looked like he needed to get on a diet. But there was a guy who brought the clown suit mentality, and it was death for him. And she, and you could see that the casting director, I can't remember who it was. But you could tell she had been giving him chance after chance after chance, because there was something that she believed in, and he kept blowing it with that clown suit mentality instead of and she kept trying to tell him, just lose all the bullshit, man. Just lose all that physical bullshit that you're putting on. This is a movie. It's not theater. We're not going to stand up there and become something else, not at your age, because we're all 21. I'm trying to get to you. And she felt that there was something in there. And I don't think he ever got it. I heard it. I just went, wow, you know what? She's saying, be yourself. Let yourself come out, whatever that is. Yeah.
I love this talk. I love that. There are so many actors who, I mean, we have so much to get to. I got to get to General Hospital. I got to get to Hollywood. Also, I got so much to get to, but I want to just give me one more second, one more stab at this, because what you're saying back in the 80s is something that we're hearing right now so much so of is be you. bring you to the role? Like, how do you do that? And I got to be honest with you that, you know, from Pierce, from Bosch, understanding that, you know, that moral compass, that likable, honest guy, that, you know, that piece that I always brought to most of my roles. I didn't understand that until we were like well into Pierce. Like, this is what my thing is. If you know what I mean, I always got, oh, he's the cop, or, you know, he's playing a tech or something like that. But I didn't understand the je ne sais quoi there for a long time. And so how did you get to that place back in, I mean, it sounds like we've been saying this for like 50 years now for you.
I know. Well, there's something that never changes, and that is, especially if we're working in Hollywood, we're working on camera. The camera works from here. It wants to see us through that prism, right? That lens of the eyes and how we read on camera. Having the ability to be seen, able to think on camera is golden. If the audience can see that, you know, then they're engaged. I'm glad you brought up Pierce, because there's something that you did, and I watched every episode of Bosch. I didn't miss it. I was a huge fan of the show. I was a huge fan of the books going back to the 80s when Michael started first publishing the Harry Potter. So getting on that set was great. But there was something that you did with Pierce that I think is absolutely essential. You found your areas of commonality. And that's about bringing yourself. What do you say? Bring yourself, be yourself, do you. Well, what does that mean in the case of this line of dialogue, where Pierce is displaying his moral compass and the conundrum and the conflict that he feels with the corruption around him? Because he had to maintain a very steady walk, you know, through this cesspool that we call Los Angeles, you know, the cesspool of corruption, you know, and demented humanity that cops have to walk. But you were able to do that. And that's one of the things that really made that character sing, not to blow smoke, but that's one of the reasons why it lasted 7 seasons.
Yeah.
You know, I think you're even doing the new one now, aren't you?
I did do a spinoff on the new one as well. You know, one of the lines that I remember most out of all of it is we were in the Angel's Flight cart, and my line was, we're not going to get a warrant. And, you know, in true Pierce fashion, I just looked and smiled. I'm like, guess we're not gonna get a warrant. Like, you know what I mean? It's like again, I'm like, Titus always did stuff, or Bosch always did stuff without warrants. And I'm like, you know, I'm by the book. And I'm like, all right, I guess we're gonna do this. And like, you know, but it's still very like, you got to hook back into that. I love playing him. I'm happy to continue playing him. I mean, he's not a 4-time Emmy nominated actor like yourself, Pierce is in, but you know.
Well, but I would wager that DaJuan would have that same kind of reaction if somebody said, let's not pay the cover charge, I can sneak in the back, you know. And DaJuan would say, well, I guess we're not paying the cover charge. You know, there would be, because you have a moral center, you know, you found that commonality with Pierce. And I do think that finding those things is how you release yourself into the material, and so that we can see you in the work. Yeah.
Agreed.
Sounds easier than it is.
Like that's why I came forth and I said on the podcast, when other actors are listening to this as well, is just that took me a while to understand that, because when you were coming in for season 1, you're like, I'm a cop, I got to do cop things, right? And then it just started to settle in a little bit more when it was like, okay, like what's really happening here? How am I similar to this person? How are we not? What do I have to go out and get? Like, it really started just to having a little bit of fun. And I know a lot of people don't always get to grow with characters like that, you know, like we've had over the years. And so I had a little bit of time to, like, you know, really nestle into it. This isn't about me, but I'll just say, when I came back in season 8 for the new show, I really sat back and thought to myself, what has Pierce been up to for the last year and a half? Like, what has changed for me? What has changed for me in my life? Like really thinking about that. And, you know, you can't, like, I've been through a pandemic. I've been through, you know what I mean? All that stuff that we bring to the role, because, and again, it wasn't a lot of lines, but I'm not going to show that work, you know, John, like, we don't show that, but we still have it here, like you're saying, for thinking.
Yeah. I think, you know, I think often being an actor is kind of like a detective story, you know, as you're trying to discover trying to learn and search out, the truth of what this character is. And that's a great investigatory exercise that you did. You had that time in between. It's like, okay, what has transpired in my life,
Yeah.
in people's life, yeah. And you have it here. So, it's going to read somehow.
Yes.
And that's all we need is for the audience to go, he's thinking about something.
Yeah, it was good stuff.
Yeah.
So, John, you've done so much TV. Like, I mean, I could rattle off like 436 episodes and counting
Yeah.
of General Hospital. General Hospital and like so much. I Port Charles, the spinoff. I mean, Twins, like all the. I mean, like there's just so much as the world. I'm just like. I was like floored at this, and I guess I want to ask you, like, what's it like working on a show for that long? I mean, I did 7 seasons, but like you are there and playing at least Port Charles and General Hospital, these same characters. I mean, I don't know what happened to your twin, but like, you know what I mean? Like the same characters for so long. What's it like that?
Yeah. It was, for all the things that I've had the pleasure of doing, I can tell you that General Hospital and Port Charles are at the very top of my list of love of the job, just for the sake of the job. What's it like? It's a trench. We like to say it's a marathon, not a sprint. You have to pace yourself. You go one scene at a time. I was on a shoot a couple of years ago, and an actor, the word got around, the guy that plays Kevin and Ryan from General Hospital's on the shoot today, and this is out in Boston in the wintertime during the pandemic. And this actor came up to me. He's an Oscar winner. And he says, "Hey, John, how many lines or how many pages do you guys do in a day?" I said, "Oh, wow. It's probably close to, if your storyline's really cranking, it's like 20, maybe 30, and we're all masked, and his eyes kind of like went like that, I said, "But the worst day I ever had was 120 pages.
Yes.
I think he thought I was lying to him, but I wasn't. I was playing twins at the time. They had taken all these scenes from different episodes and piled them into one production day, which is not uncommon to blow up shows and shoot them out of order like that, just like anyone else. And technically it was 60 pages, but it was twins talking to each other. So I had to do everything twice, though. So 120 pages. And it took me all day. Now, that was all day into the night. I think we wrapped at 10 o'clock at night, and I was just exhausted. It's an exhausting way to work because you have to hit the ground running so fast, especially now. Now in the old days, it was
twins,
as twins or at all, just anybody. I mean, I haven't stepped on a set at General Hospital in years without walking into rehearsal and everybody basically knows all their lines before we even start to block. And the day would usually be a dry block, which is just telling us where to go. And then later on, we come in, we do a camera run through so the cameras know where to shoot, and then we shoot. I mean, it's a boom, 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 fast thing. And so everybody just knows, you have to show up ready. The good news is the hardest job is learning the lines, because if you've been there a while, you do have a very strong sense of who that character is, what their moral center is or is not. I did play a serial killer twin, and I played his very good, straight-laced psychiatrist brother. So, I've got this spectrum of people. The twin is dead now, by the way. The psycho is dead, which really made me sad because I loved playing him. Yeah, I just loved it. But
it is also so he can come back in some way.
Way, somehow, they did it already. So they found a way to explain it. And it actually made sense the way they did it. But after time, I mean, I've been in and out of that stage now going on 32 years. Since 1992. So, and they keep asking me back. Don't ask me why, but they do.
Come on.
And I love going back. Yeah, I love going back. I love seeing my friends. I love being on that familiar stage. It's it's nice to have this place. It feels like home, but you do get to know the characters very well. So that's why I say the hardest part of the job for me now is getting the lines into my head, especially if I have 9 pages of monologues like I did a couple of weeks ago. That was a new sensation. I hadn't had that in a while. But I had just shot a proof of concept piece in Dallas, Texas, 2 days before that, where I had a 1.5-page monologue to deliver. So I got greased up. I do have those skills, those old muscles to use. So, I don't know, man. It's a really up and down, still challenging because once you get the words in, you still have to deal with the character. And I still sit down and go, what do I have in common with this guy? What do I think about this person that I'm talking to? What do I think about this line? Thankfully, they don't freak out if you paraphrase it, as long as you have the idea right. But there's often better ways to say it that sounds better, that comes out of your mouth, easier for the audience to hear it than what they wrote. Because for them, it's a marathon too. They're cranking out 5 hours of television every week, so they're banging this. It's not easy. So I'm amazed that these shows are still on the air sometimes. I mean, sometimes it feels like if they cut the budget another $10, you wouldn't be able to make the week, but for some reason they want to keep these around. They want to keep at least one on every network.
Well, it feels like, because they're doing amazing. You know what I mean? They're still, it must
Well,
be.
I will give it that, to be a part of something like that where, it's only ever been the only medium that can tell a story in real time from a very human perspective. And it's done that with all kinds of social issues, going from the AIDS crisis to interracial marriages to, it's just to,
sexuality, everything.
Exactly, everything. And it's the only medium that's done it in that way. And because it does it that way, it has often done it better than any other medium I've seen. Because you try to do it in an 1.5-hour TV movie, everything gets truncated down. You can't deal with the subtleties and the nuance of what that means to people. And that's what daytime dramas are really for, to go through, to be able to explore those things. And at their best, they really do it better than anybody. I'm proud to be a part of that.
Well, we've talked before, my story. It's just that daytime dramas and soap operas really are part of the reason I became an actor. And I because I used to I got to watch them in the afternoon when my brother and sister came home, and that's what I did, especially during the summers and stuff like that. And I grew up on All My Children. No offense to you, I didn't see that on your didn't see that anywhere.
Not on my resume.
I grew up with All My Children, and those twins were the Chandlers.
David Canary.
David Canary.
He did a great job.
Did it great, and I was like, forever I thought it was 2 of them. I really just thought it was 2 of them until but I guess I'm more of an actor question here. I'm one of the things that actors, I don't know why, but they're worried about being typecast, right? Like they're worried about, like, I don't want to do this too many times, but like if you do something, these characters for like 500 episodes, like one of my other guests said, worry about being typecast when your bank account is full, and that was her exact line. And I, because everybody's like these things, like, I don't want to. And I was like, I'll play a cop or a detective for as long as they want me to, long as it's still feeding the soul as well. So I guess I just wonder, like, what's been your thought on that? Or if you've had a thought on.
Well, it kind of goes back to that question of durability and branding and all that stuff. I mean, the fact is, yes, we have makeup. I mean, look what Bradley Cooper did for Maestro. They took all this shit for his nose. Well, that's what Leonard Bernstein looked like, for Christ's sake, But underneath all of that was this magnificent actor named Bradley Cooper.
Right.
And there's only so much you can do with this and this. I mean, God, you look back at actors like Broderick Crawford. I mean, they were. I watch a lot of film noir.
Yeah.
Saturday nights on TCM, you watch some of these guys and they made a career out of their overweight, balding, hulking presence because they need those people too. They don't just need good looking ingenues and angry young men, I say partly, sure, worry about getting typecast once your bank account is, and you got your pension vested and all that. But I think I don't think you can start breaking type until you have some real experience under your belt and build your confidence and build your skills. And then, nowadays it's like all of our friends are doing some ultra low budget movie. Go work it
Yeah.
out over there, go put on the
Mhm.
costume and the makeup and do all that and see if, I did that on a horror film once. I played a French pimp and I had,
Mhm.
I put
I'm
on a
sorry.
mustache,
I
and
didn't expect that.
I know. And, and I worked on my accent for quite a while,
Mhm.
in order to have to speak like Vincent the Pimp, and I showed a clip of it to a director friend of mine who I had worked with, and he's watching it, and and finally he goes, "Wait, is that you?" Yes, that's
Yeah.
me. He didn't recognize me. He didn't hear my voice. He didn't. Finally, he saw these. He saw my eyes. He said,
Yeah.
"That's what gave it away. Otherwise I wouldn't have known that." Okay, look, that's an anomaly in my career. I'm never asked to do those things. Well, I can't say never because I was asked once,
Mm.
but only once.
Yeah.
Why they felt I could pull it off, I still don't know. I didn't even bother to ask them. But
Mm.
I'd say if you're really dying to do all that stuff, go back to John Wayne. It was Harry Carey's wife way back in the 1930s. And Harry
Mhm.
Carey was this great character actor who did Harry Carey. And John Wayne had Stagecoach come out and he's on top of the world and he's gonna play every character and he's gonna put on the stuff and he's gonna be, and Harry Carey's wife said, "Wait a minute, just settle down. Would you want to see Harry Carey different?" And he said, "Oh, no, gosh, no. I mean, why?" But he says, "Then why do you think anybody wants to see you different?" And that kind of determined, the next 50 years of his career as a top 10 box office draw. He admitted that many, many years later, that it was
Mm.
without that woman saying, "Will you settle down?" Um,
Yeah.
he probably wouldn't have had the career that he had. He might have just kind of drifted off and become, a bit player,
Yeah.
after all that success that he had. So, you know, I would say that if it's in the cards, the opportunities will present themselves for that. And
Mhm.
if you really want to do that, then by God, you better be ready for it. And the
Yeah.
only way to get ready for it is to just get as much work under your belt as you can, get as much experience, get confident in who you are and what you do.
You just said something a little bit a second ago that really just like stuck with me. It's like you said, there's only so much you can do with this, right? Like there's only like, and I thought that was just so, um, it was just wise. Like there is so much you can do. I feel like everybody's thinking of, well, if I play Meryl Streep, like she was the Iron Lady, and then she went off and did Mamma Mia, but it's still Meryl Streep. You know what I mean?
It's
It's still the,
there. Yeah. Yeah.
and it's still it doesn't feel like it's now we're under, I don't know, it's prosthetics or something like that. It's still that. And I don't know why that hit me. I just really, really like that part of that.
Yeah. I mean, there are some actors out there, and I think she's one of them who just finds, and even when she did Sophie's Choice, you can't help but feel the confidence coming from her.
Mhm, mhm.
She's just a badass, man. But
Powerhouse.
I
Yeah.
also think she's one of those people, and there's very few of them who can really do it, especially in Hollywood or in the movies, because you have to do so much of what we do is doing the same thing over and over and over again,
Mhm.
multiple takes and all that. I guess maybe she just feels more comfortable stepping behind an accent or a piece of makeup or a costume or something. Um, it's not often you get to see her just kind of unadorned, except
Mhm.
that confidence. It's always there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
I
confidence
don't
is
know,
often
man. I've
underrated.
worked with a lot of great performers, Colin Farrell and Rachel McAdams and Titus and, you know, I mean, just a lot of people. And there's just there's a consistency to what they bring. You know, it's funny. It's, you know, when I saw Colin do his turn as the Penguin, I didn't know he was in the movie. Had no idea. And it was the first scene, about halfway through the first scene in the Batman, that I saw the eyes. And I went,
Yeah.
oh my God, that's Colin Farrell.
Yeah.
You know, and it's the Penguin the way Colin Farrell would do it.
I love that. I love that. I want to talk about Hollywood Hustle if we can, just for a second. I mean,
Hollywood Hustle? What's that? Is that a book out in hardcover?
by the Barnes and Noble down the street from me is out of them. What is?
Oh, no.
I couldn't go get it. I was trying to get it so that I could like get it and read it. And I was like, you know, so I'll have to do it on Audible now. And I hope are you on Audible? Are you reading it?
I narrated it. Yeah. Yeah. I did narrate my own book. I did it down here in the basement. I have a collapsible frame with these
thing
with the acoustic blankets, you know, so I can pick the whole thing up and move it around and all that. But I've done about 40 audiobooks already. It's kind of a side hustle for me. And and I like doing them because I love to read so much. But it was a little bizarre to sit there and read your own book. You know? A little surreal, but a good.
Is that a book there? Do you have the book? Do you actually have the book in front of you? Like, can you? I mean, show. Oh, there it is.
Yeah, that's it, right here. Hollywood Hustle by Jon Lindstrom. Lots of nice blurbs on the back. Put a nice picture of me with my socials and everything in there.
I love it.
Yeah.
Wait, so how did I just want to know, how did this come up? How did this, like, I mean, you know, okay, listen, I follow you on Instagram. I've seen you with the other young man from General Hospital. I'm forgetting his name.
Michael.
Yes. I've seen you all doing your shorts there, and then all of a sudden it was like a book, and I was like, how did like you get to best author? I mean, I love the premise of it and the movie money and all this stuff, and it's like it just was really it felt like it was all working together. I don't know if you did those little skits. I don't know what's called skits. We'll call them scenes, you know, and then you knew you were going to release a book, or tell us more.
I knew what was coming. I mean, it takes a long time for a book to come out. It was about 18 months between signing with the publishers and then the book actually dropping last month in February. But you know, how did it come about? I don't know. I've written screenplays that have been produced, and you know, of course, everybody in Hollywood and their dog has a screenplay that they're working on, but
not been produced
and produced. Yes, I've done some producing, done some directing. But you know, the biggest difference was in publishing, nobody tells you to change anything. They have some suggestions on how to finesse it this way or that. But you know, I've pitched a lot of scripts in Hollywood, and it's not uncommon to have people say, change it, or we're just not going to do it. But, you know, that's a big, expensive proposition that you're trying to convince them to invest in. And so they're just trying to find the best way to make sure they get their money back. You know, that's all. But I don't know. It was one morning, and it was probably a year before the pandemic. I sat down in my little writing space, which I would do, and I just started typing. And I had this idea for, this guy wakes up in his mountain home. He's an over the hill movie star, you know, it's kind of gotten his career back to a stable place. He's been sober for quite a while now. And he wakes up and there's this little girl in the room. It's his granddaughter. What the hell's she doing here? She shouldn't be here, for one thing. Her parents live half an hour away. So, and I just kept writing from there. I didn't plot it out. I didn't put a bunch of scene cards on the wall. I came up with ideas for a beat sheet, and I would follow that. And if I got to that beat, I might use it. I might not. But I wrote for about a year, and then, I guess it was about a year. And then they decided to bring back Ryan Chamberlain on General Hospital. And all of a sudden I had twin duty and I didn't have time to write. And I actually had to put it down. So then I got to go do this other thing that I love to do. I got to go and act. And then the pandemic hit and everything went down. So I could get back to the book. had to print it out and actually read what I had, which was about 200 pages at that point. And I still hadn't finished it. I picked it up during the pandemic, was able to get through the first draft to the end of the book. And then the first shows to start up were soap operas. And we picked up right where we left off. So I had to put the book down again because I had to go play Twins again. And that went on for about another 6 months. And then that finally slowed down and I was able to pick up the book again. And that's when I started to go through the rewrites and started working with an editor, a real book editor, before I submitted it to anybody. So once that whole process was done, it took about 2 years of writing, of actual writing, but it was about 4 years from beginning to finish.
Yeah.
So it was a long process, but I love to write, so it didn't bother me.
Is it doing okay in the world? Like, is it selling any copies?
It's an official bestseller.
What? Oh my God, I didn't know.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I know. I haven't posted about that at all.
You guys, it's funny. I'm just joking, but it's fun to watch.
I tell you, nobody was more surprised than me. Somebody told me on Instagram, I got a message from someone who does like book PR, not somebody who I work with, but kind of DM back and forth and all that. And she said, look, you're on this bestseller list, your first week on sale. And she sent me the actual list. It was the USA Today list, which strangely apparently has the highest sales threshold of any of the bestseller lists. It's 1,000 more than the New York Times bestseller list, which also has what you'd call it an editorial component to whether or not you get on that. For instance, my friend Maurice Bernard, who plays Sonny Corinthos on General Hospital, wrote an autobiography that focused very much on mental health. He got onto the New York Times list, but he didn't get on the USA Today list. Strangely enough,
it's not a
Wall Street Journal list. Yeah.
Did you hear me? It's not a competition.
It's not a good. Well, it is a little bit.
It is a little bit.
A little bit. You want to be proud in what you've done. So, but yes, it hit the USA Today bestseller list its first week on sale, and apparently is holding its own. And so anyway, that was just really exciting. Out of the thousands of titles that are released every week, to be in the top 150, and I was about halfway up that list on the first week, was a huge shot in the arm. And it was funny, my book agent, I texted her name is Liza, she's out in New York. I texted her and I said, is this real? I mean, and somebody gave me this list, and she texted right back. She says, usually they tell us before it drops. So let me just double check and make sure it's legit. About 5 minutes later, she called me. She's crying. She's so happy. Yeah. They take a risk too, which is true of our business, agents, managers, everybody, they all take a risk on you. So when something great happens all the way around, it's good for everybody.
Hey, actor, are you constantly questioning what it takes to stand out in your self-tapes? Wondering if your backdrop's color really matters? Or should you or shouldn't you use props in your audition? Or maybe, what are casting directors really looking for in those first crucial 10 seconds? Hey, it's DaJuan, the self-tape guy, and I've got you covered. After surveying 800 actors in my self-tape challenge, I've compiled their top 10 questions into an exclusive playbook just for you. No more guesswork, no more uncertainty, and certainly no more stress. Get those answers you need to elevate your self-tapes at www.selftapeplaybook.com. I got equipment, I talk about props, wardrobe, and eye lines. I got you covered. It's high time for your self-tapes to stop being an obstacle to booking your dream role. Let's bring the joy of acting back into your life. Head on over to selftapeplaybook.com today, right now, so you can share in this success.
I'm called to ask the question of, again, when we were younger, when you're starting out, you heard the toxic statement of, if you can do anything besides acting, go do that, because acting's so hard. But now it seems, right? I don't know if you've ever heard that, something like that, right?
Yeah.
To that statement, which I think is very toxic, because I feel like there's people who could write books, be bestsellers, or who could be the next inventor of a kind bar or something like that. But they're so like, no, I love acting so much, so I want to show that I'm real. But what I'm hearing here is you've diversified and it's a-okay and you're loving it. It seems like that's okay. Do you feel that way as well? Like writer, director, producer, voiceover, all that stuff. It is your brand, Jon. I know you don't like that word, but
Yeah,
see,
you
he
did
did it
ask.
again, y'all. He did it again. You
Some of
gotta
my
watch this on
friends
YouTube.
were we were playing this game. We were writing to our representatives and said, okay, the branding thing is a big deal, and we're on the older end of the spectrum, so we don't kind of live in that world of branding and TikTok and all that stuff, but hey, if you were to label a brand on me, what would it be? And I was happy to see that they all came back as versatile. Oh, okay. For all my restrained evil in a suit, I'm still seen as a versatile performer. I think, God, it's just so important. I do remember, maybe this is one of the reasons why I'm not afraid to diversify. Many years ago, when I was still in the service industry, one of the people I waited on was Billy D. Williams. And
Oh,
yeah, and he's the loveliest man, and just he's so classy and erudite and well dressed. He's got, the guy just has taste coming out of his pores,
yes.
and he was just a lovely man. And I asked him at the end of the meal, with his friends there and all that, and I said, what kind of advice do you give to somebody like me? Because he was still riding that wave of Star Wars and
Yeah.
stuff, and he said, live the life of an artist. Go to museums, go to concerts. If you play an instrument, play it. Do all those things that your creative self need. One thing he suggested was, that to go to graveyards, walk around a cemetery, feel the presence of the spirits there, but embrace all those parts of yourself that need to express as well. I mean, I was a drummer for a rock band for a decade. We got signed to a record deal and had a couple of singles on the radio. And we were basically a bunch of unemployed actors looking for something creative to do. It's amazing how many people would show up to our shows up on Sunset Boulevard, and that alone would create opportunities. I would get calls at home from my agent going, "Do you have your drum set handy?" Yeah, of course. I said, "Well, they want to audition you down at the music center for a new play. They need a drummer for it." I'm like, "Okay, great." They said, "Can you take your drums?" "Sure, I'll take my drums. What the hell? They don't have drums at the music center?" But and I even got a job jobs as a musician, playing a musician a couple of times.
Yeah.
So it's just important to allow your creative self to run wild and run free.
Yeah. It sounds like it also adds to, again, resilience out here in the industry, or
It helps you
that
do it.
it's your staying power, a little bit longer here. Well, I think everybody needs to get Hollywood hustle and some movie money and all of that stuff. I want to drop it back in because this podcast is all about the mindset of actors and listening to it. And your story is so inspirational to me. I guess I want to ask some of those questions that might not be so inspiring, not inspired, but might not be so readily available. Like, what's made you want to put it down for a minute? Was there a time in this industry, aside from the strikes, but that you just have been like, I think
Yeah.
I've done it.
Yeah,
And
I did. Yeah, it's been a couple of times, and it was right when I thought I really should be working the most. When I go back to like my 30s, and I was already in the business. I had a good agent. I had a resume behind me. I'd already done some contract work and done some films and all that. And all of a sudden it just stopped.
Yeah.
And for some reason, not that I couldn't get a job, I couldn't even get an audition. I didn't know what the fuck was going on. And it came to a head for me when when I I heard about a TV movie being made about the USS Indianapolis,
Mhm.
which was the aircraft carrier
Mhm.
that carried the Hiroshima bomb. All right. And
Okay.
on the way back, they tell this story in the movie Jaws. Captain Quint was on the Indianapolis. It was so secret that when they got torpedoed by the Japanese, they couldn't send a distress signal. So all these guys wound up in the ocean, and many of them were eaten by sharks. I mean, it's a horrific moment in human history, the story of the Indianapolis. But all these guys were my age, and I could not get in on this thing. They would not see me. And then I saw it
You're like,
years.
I could get ate by a shark. The
Yeah,
shark can eat me.
I can drown.
I
You
can
know,
drown.
I can do that. I was even a certified scuba diver at that
You're
point.
like,
I mean, I
I
could
know.
do this job.
You're
And
like in your
I couldn't
bathtub
get an
videoing it.
audition.
Like,
Years later, I was with somebody. I was actually with my first wife, and that movie came on television as a rerun. And I said, listen, I got to watch this. I refused to watch it when it came out. And I'm looking at all these guys who were all my contemporaries. I
mhm.
mean, these were the guys I always saw at the auditions, going all the way back to the Breakfast Club thing. I mean, all of them, and they're all in this movie. And I had gotten to a point where I thought there must be some conspiracy against me.
Wow.
And we're about halfway through this movie, and she even turned to me and said, well, no wonder you thought there was a conspiracy against you. I mean, you should be in this movie. That was a time I really thought about hanging it up, when I couldn't, there was no rhyme or reason.
Mhm.
I had built a reputation as being a decent actor. I was professional. I was always on time. I wasn't known for being some sort of drug head. I was reliable. You
Yeah.
could depend on John to show up at least for the audition and to bring it. And for some reason, nobody wanted to talk to me. And I really considered, wow, maybe it's time to go back to college. Maybe I should do it. And I couldn't bring myself to it. There was
Yeah.
something about what I had already been able to accomplish. And let's face it, Hollywood is hard. Staying in Hollywood is harder. It's often like pushing a boulder uphill by yourself. That's what, again, it can just roll back on you at any time and crush you. That's how it feels sometimes.
Yeah.
So the people that, if you really have what it takes, that's part of it. That perseverance, that dedication, that refusal to accept defeat. Um, that's when I kind of turned it around. And it wasn't long after that I got General Hospital after 2 years, 2.5 years of solid unemployment. And that turned my
Wow.
entire world around. That changed my life. And when I got that job, I mean, I still remember I had less than $100 in the bank and about
Wow.
$10,000 in credit card debt.
Yeah. Did
Yeah.
you just say I think I wrote 2.5 years of solid unemployment
Yeah.
at that time. Just
Yeah.
said, wow.
Yeah. I mean, that's, and I would go and do, whatever I could to make some cash. I was back to struggling actor jobs.
Hmm.
I was working, I was working at a friend's used jeans store on Melrose Avenue at one point. And here were all these people from Hollywood, because everybody went to Melrose to shop back then. And I'm sitting behind the counter, behind the cash register, taking money, to sell used Levi's. And people are going, John, where have you been? And I'm like, I'm right here.
Yeah.
Got the
I
same
think this
agent,
is
got
so
the same
important.
phone number. Yeah.
It's so important because I think, one of the things that I talk about, like, very candidly on my podcast about, like being in a depression and myself. And because of the dialogue that you always hear or you think you hear is once you start hitting it, it's just an upward trajectory, right? There are no more of those dips that you're talking about. And so when kind of like when Bosch ended, we were in the middle of a pandemic. And I had already thought when Bosch was ending, great, we're on a series, we're going to keep going. At least I could be, on another show, recurring or guesting or whatever it is. And because of whatever, let's just say whatever, pandemic or the way it all thing, it was down. Right. And so to hear that, and then you don't have a job because now everybody who's A down or whatever you want to call it are also trying to get those jobs. And, it sent me into this spiral. And so it's so wonderful to hear, not your stories, your not great stories, it's great to hear, but it feels validating a little bit to understand that we all have these dips. And sometimes you can't get arrested after that. Is that, what I mean by that?
Yeah. And I think, I remember, specifically, and I think even my parents were like, maybe you should think about doing something else. And I got pissed. I get a little pissed. It was like, you know what? I'm not on your timeline.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not doing this for you so you can brag about your kid in Hollywood. And like I said, by that time, I already had a good amount of credits. I already had some contract series work and movies, and I had something that I could look back on. And I remember specifically taking posters and collecting these things of jobs that I'd done, how we collect those,
Yeah.
and I spent money I didn't have and put them into frames and got them up on my wall so that I could look back and go, I did that. There's a reason I got that and got that and got that. And I was working with really top people. And that was my way of turning that crank away from depression and lack of confidence, self-confidence, because it does work on your self-confidence. You start to go, I had that, more than once since, where I go, oh my God, maybe I'm just a really bad actor. It's not true. I know I'm not a bad actor, but there are times in your life where you think, you feel like you have imposter syndrome. I've got it right now with this. They want me to write book 2.
Yeah.
And I'm only halfway through it. And if this wasn't a bestseller, I might have walked away, but I've got some new confidence now. That's part of the job. And that's why I say it's part of the life. Let's put it that way. It's part of the life that we live, where we are going to be challenged by these periods where we have to turn that screw and turn it into something else. This can't be, it's not healthy to walk around in that kind of depression. Yes, it happens. We all get it, but you have to find a way to make that work and be aware of it, to recognize it. Go ahead and feel it. So you know what that feels like, if for no other reason, because you never want to feel like that again.
You don't.
And one way I combat it is things like that.
Well, you're feeding that other creativity.
Feed that same creative beast. That is always needing to be fed. So find ways to do that. It's amazing how that sends a message out into the universe, and somebody out there will receive it and suddenly go, oh, wait a minute, I haven't seen DaJuan in a while. Let's bring him in. I do kind of believe in that magic of putting it out there.
I do too.
It's on something and it comes back. But it's just kind of like, what you put your effort into is what you experience.
I do. I believe that. And I got to say, there's one thing that I always look back on. I'll show you my wall in a second here too. But working with Titus was a godsend, because, watching, well, I don't know him so much before Bosch, but, except the Lost and things like that. But like just charting his trajectory of his career and how long he's been doing it, the people he's like been around, and how people love him so much. I was like, that's how you have staying power in this industry. Like just like what he was guest starring and, stuff he was doing. And I just think that you have to understand it's an ebb and flow. If you don't understand the valleys and stuff like that. I would be remiss, Jon, if I didn't add, I have one question I have circled on here that I wanted to know. because, and this is an actor-y question, when you've done General Hospital, you've As the World Port, all that stuff, you've done wonderful work. When you get an audition, they're going to like send it out to you now. You get an audition, your agent, how do you get into those newer roles now? Like, how do you break it script out? Like, are you looking at it? Is there a process that you have that's so amazing because you already have this canon or this thing? So I'm just wondering, how does Jon now
I
break it?
try to take, nowadays I try to take the word audition out of it.
Oh,
I
good.
loved, and I think it was the late Philip Hoffman who said, and I knew some people that, when I lived in New York, I was friends with some of the people that had founded Labyrinth Theater with Philip. And, and they always used to say, oh, Phil, man, he was determined he was going to be the best, that was like his goal, not really good, the best, talk about competition. But I remember him giving out two great pieces of advice. One is just kind of practical. If you're ever on a night shoot, don't go hang out with the crew until your time comes up. Go to your trailer and go to sleep.
Yeah.
That's what he would do. And then he'd wake up and he'd come out and he'd be fresh. And he's got all this energy and he can deliver at that time. So that's just a practical thing. Conserve your energy, pace yourself. But he said that when he was auditioning, and you can go back to movies like Scent of a Woman and see him in a little role, in Scent of a Woman, and he would treat every reading, every audition as, this is my only chance to play this part. Now, what do I have to do to play this part? He would sit down and go through it. What do I have in common? How do I do this part? How do I approach this line? Approach it just like you have the job. Now, nowadays, of course, we have to put up a ring light and we have a plain background, and I love the stuff. I love the service that you're providing for people, because I tune in once in a while and remind myself, this is what we got to do. So please keep doing what you're doing, DaJuan. I think it's just invaluable to especially in this new paradigm that we live in. But I try to approach, it's almost like approaching it like I do every day if I'm doing General Hospital. You got to turn this thing in. You got to turn it around and get it out. So, I don't have time to spend 3 weeks, rehearsing it like I would a play. Unpack this scene as fast as I can, make my decisions, make sure that I understand my choices. Don't second guess them, just do it. And I also try to pick a good reader.
Yeah.
I always try to pick somebody I know and like and respect, and fortunately we have people like that, whether they're in the same room or they're coming through, Zoom or something like that. We can find them. And I just try to get myself into a frame of mind where I feel comfortable with the dialogue. I can relax and let my shoulders drop. That's one mistake I used to make. I used to think I had to come in with this verve, and that just feels tense. I want to be able to relax and let them see what they want to see in the movie or TV show, which is basically this. They need to see what you're thinking. How are you approaching this? Are you taking your time? Are you relaxed and listening? Turn it into an acting exercise as if this is the only time you'll get to play the part. And I found that it's worked for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so good. That's so good.
I hope so.
It was, it's so good. I want to make sure that, like I just say, live and up close and personal, that, meeting you back in season 4, was it season 5? Season 5, right? Right, because season 4 we did a lot of night shoots because we were up at Angels Flights. Oh my gosh, talk about night shoots. That was like,
that was a good season, by the way. The Angels Flight. That was a good season.
It was good there, but I got to sit and have, a meal with you and talk to you and stuff like that. And, you and your wife really made my day. And I never shared those pictures publicly. by the way.
Oh, you didn't. That's right.
I
Yeah.
didn't. It was mine. And I think there's this thing where you can kind of take a picture and you spin it out there. But I was just so happy to have had those moments. And so thank you for what you did for the young actor in me. You didn't have to. I appreciate it. And I'm glad to call you a friend.
I feel the same way, my man. And you know what? Hang on to those pictures. That's part of the world that there are moments that I want to keep to myself too. They shouldn't. Not everything has to end up as an Instagram post.
Yeah.
There are things I really want to keep just special to me.
It's special to me. It's just mine. It's just mine. I'm gonna let you go, but I just want to let you know that, did you know you have a fake on TikTok? Like, did you know you're
I got kicked off TikTok. I couldn't believe. Yeah, the publishers for my book asked me, because TikTok is big for publishing. Just getting the word out, awareness, and all that marketing. And so they asked me, would you mind going on TikTok? I said, well, isn't that kind of like Instagram? And they said, yeah, it's basically, you just do the same thing there. Just repost it there. I said, okay, yeah, sure, I'll do it. What I didn't know is that there was already at least 2 people pretending to be me on TikTok. And at least one of them, convinced TikTok that they were actually me, not me.
Yeah.
And this was even after when nowadays you have to upload your ID. Some official, like my real California driver's license, a real ID, I'm redacting address and everything out of it, but it's like, this is me, no, they completely deleted my TikTok profile. So
I just love how much you stress that.
I got kicked off TikTok. You know what? Fine. I didn't want to be there anyway.
Oh, thank you so much, Jon, for stopping by.
We have to deal with.
But you're not fighting it. It was great. Thank you so much for coming
DaJuan.
in.
It's great to see you, man.
Jon. Embrace all of the parts of yourself, all of your creative self needs. That just blew me away. This just spoke to me. I love how Jon really laid this out. Embrace your creative parts, the other creative parts, not just acting. I love how he leaned into the Hollywood hustle, writing it, being creative, especially since the consciousness of actors past that we've been bringing into this moment is, if you're doing anything else outside of acting, then you're not really an actor. That's the consciousness of actors past, and that couldn't be further from the truth. And Jon is living freaking proof of a working actor that embraces and thrives, might I say, in all of these other creative areas. I was in awe. I was in awe listening to him. I was in awe, being a best-selling author. And I was like, get it, Jon. Get it. That's a D12 shot for me. During this era of the podcast, I'm really discovering that this is a 60-year career. I used to say that. This isn't a 6-year career. This is a 60-year career. And you might not be on top all of those 60 years. So getting out all of your creative juices in other outlets sounds amazing. You might not be getting all of your income from being on set. This guy's a best-selling author. I know he's getting reward, fulfillment from that. So good, Jon. But we if we're the smartest people, we know the smartest people in the world diversify their income. Why not us? Why not you? Ask yourself, why not you? Why does it only have to be in this one way? Why can't we become something else? Why does it only have to be an actor? Why can't you be a multi-hyphenate like Jon? I want to be the one to share this with you, to coach you through this, you around this as a journeyman actor, that you might not always roll from show to show to show. And it's okay. It really, really, really is. A lot of people don't make it in this industry because they hold on to the white picket fence dream, I call it, a little bit too long. that they must make their acting only from being on set, especially when all these other bigger actors are telling you by their actions that they're not only doing that. Eva Longoria, who owns like a restaurant, who has, does directing and does other endorsements. We have Patrick Dempsey. Everybody. I could go down the line. We see it. But yet we won't do it. It's very, very, very interesting. I'm not saying let go of acting. I'm saying grow with your vision. That's a good one. Grow with your vision. Grow with your dream. You want to write a book and be a best-selling author? Do it. You want to narrate audiobooks, open a restaurant, play in a rock band, sell hot Cheetos? Do it. Direct, write, act, sing. Do all the things that make your creative heart sing. Thank you, Jon, for being so open and honest with us. Thank you, I say. That's it for this episode. I'm excited. I want to go out and create. Oh, man, you know what to do. Reach out. Tell me your thoughts on this episode or this D12 shot. I want to hear your D12 shot for this episode. If you could do me a favor, because, there are so many people listening to this podcast and they have not subscribed. They have not shared it. You got to share. You got to subscribe because it gets other people. They know the Apple iTunes people and the Spotify people, or, the people, they raise the podcast up. They're like, oh, people like this. They've subscribed to it. So let's get this podcast out there so more people can, hear about us and know about me and know about this Think Bigger tribe that we have going on here. So I just want to leave you with this. Don't quit. Don't get out of line. I want you to borrow my faith in you because I'm rooting for you so freaking hard. Because if you're in the room, I'm in the room. Do me a favor. Hold the vision of your career, of your life, not the circumstances you're in right now. Your vision is bigger than just this moment. Remember this. I love you so big. Nicholas, just in case you want to go get that last little thing I fumbled on here. And remember this. I love you so big.